Imagine the darkness just closing in around you. Millions of tons of solid rock pressing down from every possible angle, literally isolating you from the sky, from anything safe. Down here, there's no day or night. There's only the absolute silence of the deep earth, violently shattered by the relentless grind of heavy machinery against ancient stone. Now, this explainer isn't about some simple dig or a routine construction project. No, we're talking about humanity's descent into a deeply hostile, claustrophobic subterranean war zone. The construction of the Gotthard Base Tunnel was a brutal, decades-long battle against the very geology of the Earth. We are talking about an environment that fundamentally does not want us there. 2,300 meters. Just let that number truly sink in for a second. We're talking nearly a mile and a half straight down. You are deeply buried beneath the jagged, towering peaks of the Swiss Alps. And at this extreme, unfathomable depth, you're not just inside a cave or a mine shaft anymore. You are at the absolute bottom of a stone ocean. Down here, you are bearing the literal, crushing weight of a massive mountain suspended directly above your head. Every single breath you take down in this void happens under the constant, suffocating threat of that immense weight. You are completely, 100% at the mercy of the mountain.
So, let's dive into what that depth actually means when it comes to raw, unyielding physics. At 2,300 meters, the rock exerts a terrifying vertical force. We're looking at an overburden pressure of over 60 megapascals. And under this agonizing pressure, the fundamental rules of nature that we just take for granted, they seem to completely break down. Solid stone actually stops acting like a rigid, dependable wall. Instead, it begins to slowly deform. It literally begins to flow inward, almost like a hyperdense liquid. Engineers call this creeping mechanical terror rock squeezing. The mountain isn't just heavy, it's actively closing its fist around you. It groans, it shifts, and it is capable of buckling heavy steel support rings like they're made of tinfoil. It constantly threatens to slowly crush the tunnels and the multi-million-dollar drilling machines into mangled scrap metal. And if you're picturing the damp, cool conditions you might expect in a standard tunnel dig, totally forget that, because deep inside the Gotthard, engineers violently collided with the geothermal heat crisis. See, as you push deeper and deeper into the Earth's crust, you enter a totally alien thermal environment. Trapped, natural geothermal energy relentlessly bakes the surrounding stone from the inside out. Down in the belly of the Gotthard, miles away from fresh air, the ambient temperature of the rock hit a baking 46 degrees Celsius. That is about 115 degrees Fahrenheit of stagnant, suffocating heat just radiating from every single square inch of the tunnel walls. A human body simply cannot endure that kind of hostile environment. The air itself was basically a weapon. These suffocating, claustrophobic conditions meant that without drastic intervention, workers and even heavy machinery would succumb to fatal heat stroke within mere minutes. To keep the crew alive, engineers couldn't just, set up some standard fans. They were forced to build what was essentially an underground space station. They had to constantly pump hurricane-force gales of ice-cold air deep into the labyrinth of shafts, while simultaneously and desperately pumping out the scalding hot water that continuously seeped from the bleeding rock face. It was a massive, industrial-scale life support system operating miles below the surface, literally just to buy the miners enough time to work.
But, the mountain's most violent weapon actually wasn't the heat. It was kinetic energy. When you take incredibly hard, brittle rock, like granite, and you suddenly relieve it of millions of tons of confining pressure by carving a tunnel straight through it, the rock reacts explosively. This absolutely terrifying phenomenon is known as a rockburst. Spontaneously, with literally zero warning, massive slabs of solid granite would detonate off the tunnel walls, firing inward like bullet-speed shrapnel. The mountain literally explodes under its own stress. Just imagine working in a confined tube where the walls themselves act as fragmentation grenades. To even survive this relentless bombardment, engineers had to execute some desperate countermeasures. Just look at the structural reinforcement detailed in this blueprint. The very millisecond the rock was cut by the massive boring machines, workers had to step in and drive heavy, incredibly thick steel rock bolts meters deep into the unstable walls. They were manually pinning the exploding mountain back in place. And this frantic reinforcement was instantly followed by spraying high-pressure liquid concrete, known as shotcrete, to seal the highly volatile rock face. It was this terrifying, exhausting race against the physics of exploding granite, executed kilometer after kilometer in the sweltering dark. Every single meter of advance was fought for in sweat and steel. The sheer grit required just to keep the tunnel open was staggering. But the crazy part? The worst was actually yet to come.
As the tunnel inched agonizingly forward, the engineers realized they were hurtling blindly toward the climax of our descent, a geological nightmare completely hidden deep within the Alps. It's a formation known as the Puara syncline.
Also known as the Pure Molde, this formation was the single greatest threat to the survival of the entire megaproject. So, what exactly is this trap and why is it so deadly? Well, it's a subterranean zone where extreme, ancient underground water pressure has completely pulverized a layer of hard dolomite rock. Because there's a column of water extending thousands of meters up through the mountain above it, the sheer hydrostatic pressure is unimaginable. The mountain at this specific intersection is essentially crushed into a highly pressurized, flowing liquid trap of loose sugar sand and water. If the massive tunnel boring machines hit this liquid barrier unprepared, the wall would violently collapse, instantly drowning the entire tunnel and everyone trapped inside under thousands of tons of wet sand.
And they couldn't bypass it. The only way out was straight through. So, the high-stakes engineering response to this trap reads like pure science fiction. Step 1. Cautiously drill exceedingly thin probe holes far ahead of the main tunnel to locate the exact, terrifying boundaries of the sand trap. Step 2. Pump colossal volumes of liquid nitrogen directly into the bleeding veins of the mountain. And this wasn't a quick process. They pumped thousands of gallons of supercooled nitrogen for weeks on end. Step 3. Violently freeze the pressurized sugar sand and water into a massive, structurally solid block of ice. By literally cryo-freezing the mountain from the inside out, they temporarily stabilized the unstable geology. It was an astonishing display of engineering that allowed them to finally excavate safely through the lethal zone before the mountain could thaw and swallow them whole.
For decades, this brutal subterranean warfare raged on. Massive, factory-sized boring machines chewed their way from both the north and the south simultaneously. These multinational crews fought through squeezing rock, exploding granite, suffocating heat, and frozen liquid traps. Finally, after carving a 57-kilometer scar through the absolute hardest rock on Earth, the two armies of machines neared each other in the year 2010. They'd essentially conquered the deep Earth, but the true test of their success was looming just ahead of the drill bits.
Just let this number hang in the air for a second. 8 centimeters. Take a moment to really think about that margin of error. When the colossal cutter heads finally broke through the very last wall of stone to meet in the middle, deep beneath the crushing weight of the Alps, the alignment was nearly flawless. It was an awe-inspiring display of millimeter precision. Over a 57-kilometer span, drilling totally blind through a highly hostile, volatile mountain, the deviation from the two advancing sides was a mere 8 centimeters horizontally and an astonishing 1 centimeter vertically. It was an absolute masterstroke of mathematical calculation against the sheer, unpredictable chaos of the deep Earth.
So, as we step back from the massive blueprints and the sheer, unrelenting grit detailed in this explainer, we're kind of left staring into the abyss of our own ambition. How far can human engineering truly push against the raw, crushing forces of nature? The Gotthard Mountain used every violent weapon in its geological arsenal to defend its depths, from suffocating heat to exploding rock. But human perseverance, armed with heavy steel, liquid nitrogen, and sheer willpower, held the line. Now modern passenger trains streak through this very space in mere minutes. So the next time you travel in comfort through the cool, safe dark of a tunnel, take a second to remember the brutal, decades-long invisible war that was fought literally just to let you pass.